just go on YouTube. This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the second album by English singer and songwriter Amy Winehouse. Basically, this project is called Back to Black, and it came out in the fall of 2006. So the thing about this particular product, this is definitely seen as like a classic album amongst, this particular album is definitely seen as like a classic album amongst critics and pretty much like contemporary casual type fare as well, I'd say, within the pitch behind it. This is an album that almost won Album of the Year back in the 2000s from the Grammys, pitches like that. This is a five-star album from places like All Music, which doesn't commonly give out 5 stars. It was an influential type album that helped kick off, or maybe not full-blown help kick off, but was probably an inspiration of folks like Adele and Florence and the Machine, some of those type folks. And there's some other folks that that Wikipedia says that she influenced, like Duffy and Estelle. Don't know them as full bound, but I'd have to say it's probably within the likelihood of it, I'd have to say. But yeah, this is a very impactful type thing. If you watch like movies throughout like the late 2000s and early 2010s, some of those type pitches, it just feels like a lot of influence for some of these soundtracks when you have some of that kind of just floaty kind of coffee shop kind of in between type music and just more social commute and like a more kind of disgraceful and groomed type aspect. You would definitely have to say that Amy Winehouse seems to be one of the head honchos of that particular type style, I'd say. Now, I would have to say definitely just from the pitch behind it, just the impact and the overall flavor of this album, I would probably say that Amy Winehouse was Adele before Adele. Now, I don't know if this album went diamond or something like that. It seemed like it was bigger in Europe as far as those pitches kind of happened, kind of similar to Adele. But Adele crossed over to the United States. But Amy Winehouse, the main thing that plagued her was just the fact that, you know, her being deceased, she did have like personal life problems with drug use as far as those pitches kind of happened, and she actually passed. She had passed on approximately 5 years after this particular album came out, so it was a pretty hefty wait. Folks really were wanting like that third album from Amy. Folks were really wanting that third album from Amy Winehouse for like the longest time, and it just never showed up as far as those pitches kind of happened. It's a very unfortunate type. It's a very unfortunate aspect as far as those pitches kind of happen, but this is damn near a classic. I mean, a lot of folks would probably say this is a classic. It's one of the highest selling European, one of the highest selling albums of the 21st century in terms of European albums as far as those pitches going to happen. Is what I'd say within that tone. I definitely see the heraldment about it. I do appreciate the sound quite a bit, and it is going to get a rather raven glitzy type score. I'd say I just appreciate the appeal. Just a good taste of something different. Just a more kind of bar hopping, like it's just basically like Adele and Florence, basically like Adele and Florence and the Machine, just a little bit more contemporary about it and a little bit more forlorn. It has, if you take like an album, if you take like an album by Adele, like 21, that glumness and kind of this overall sullenness of that particular product, and then you mix it with like some bar hopping and kind of coffee shop, more step out just within the tone behind it. That's probably what you'd have here just within the pitch. It just has that social appeal, as if like Amy Winehouse would go out but just kind of be wallow, just would have that wallow about her just within the aspect of going out, but also just being and drunken sorrows and pitches like that. It's not to say that that's the wrap of this particular product, like that's the synopsis about it, but just being able to say it's kind of the concept that it is a relatively dismantled type project, but it works to the same appeal. Just like Adele nailed it with 21, it's just a good pitch to kind of have some of this just within the tone that a lot of these, there's not really like a dance club type jive on here or something like that. There are coffee shop songs and like standard, like, you know, places like Panera Bread, Starbucks, some of those type places, more standard coffee shop type places where it just would be more blue-eyed soul type places where you hear some of that type fare. But I look after just within the pitch behind it, it's just basically in the same vein as Adele, I'd say, just within that pitch, but in probably Florence and the Machine if I knew them better. But I'd say it's a classic album, very impactful, just the tone behind it. This was something that didn't seem like it was happening as full-blown way back in 2006. It was an album that had a lot of definition and overall stretch and appeal as far as those pitches going to happen, and the hype for it was pretty vast and just overall ubiquitous as far as that kind of went. So it's just a good tone, kind of get some of that, but it really makes me question what a third Amy Winehouse album would have been like just within the tone, because it was just kind of the concept that it's kind of like when, you know, when you look at like larger than life musicians, like when you think of someone like Michael Jackson, or trying to think of someone else, like, can't really think of someone else who passed, who took off like more than 6 or 7 years, something like that. But when you think of someone like Michael Jackson or Amy Winehouse who takes like more than 5 or 6 years off, it's like a very, you can definitely see it being like a nerve-wracking situation, because you don't know what their track record as far as their quality albums as to what they would particularly kind of do, just because it probably would have been a shape-shifting type one if she had not been in such a forlorn type state just within the tone. And it's not, yeah, just a forlorn type state just within the tone. But yeah, we'll get to this. just being able to say, so there were 5 singles off this album. It lasted almost into 2008. The promotion cycle lasted for a while. That's a good pitch behind it. But basically, the first single is Rehab. This is a nice song here. It's like an uppity kind of blue-eyed soul funk. Some uppity kind of blue-eyed soul funk to kind of get here. Just a good coffee shop and venue bounce to kind of have. Very similar to Florence and the Machine and Adele, some of those type pitches. We probably had to say the inspiration for some of these chicas came from this particular singer here, Amy Winehouse, just within the tone. This really has a kick off to that sort of appeal. This really feels like a more rough around the edges kind of Adele as far as those pitches kind of happen. Just a little bit more raw and a little bit more rock star living as far as those pitches going to happen. Adele is just a little bit more kempt just within the tone behind it, but just with the debut single of this product being not wanting to go to rehab, some of those type pitches just within the tone behind it is an excellent type fare to kind of get this. It's excellent typeness. It's kind of get it has like the kind of has the composure of like standard European type fare just within the aspect of this being something to really cut loose on like a relative kind of coffee shop that might have a dance floor or something like that. Just some relative jive and a foot tapper to kind of get. You Know I'm No Good is a nice one, as well as like a bluesy kind of in between kind of pub crawl and coffee house to kind of get here. Just a woozy kind of big city life step out jive to kind of have just something within that pitch. So it's just kind of it's real city slag, great music to kind of listen to in like New York or Detroit, some of those type skyscraper type places, some of those type fairs, Manhattan, some of these type places that would just be larger scale just within the tone, Boston, some of these type places in particular. It really has a good aspect to kind of get some of these. So the production fare on a lot of these is just pretty, like for the most part, it's not going to be electronic. If you're thinking it's going to be something like you know, Pink, or if you think it's going to be something like, I'm trying to think of like Sia or someone like that. I want to say Sia might have had similarities to Amy Winehouse in some senses, but it's really kind of traditional coffee shop, just more gussied up type music, which is pretty excellent type pitch. But it's just kind of the tones of it has like that woozy factor about it, but it's just kind of the concept that it still is groomed enough to be able to say that it's just a good step out for like some tuxedo, maybe not tuxedo, but just kind of relative, just snazzy kind of ness to be able to say. But both these songs, Rehab and You Know I'm No Good, have over 500 million plays on Spotify. So there are, you know, obviously there's folks full-blown fucking with these songs, just to be able to say, which is an excellent type fare. Back to Black is the third single, and this is a song that has over 1 billion plays. I want to say, like, I do know I've probably heard a lot of these songs as far as those pitches kind of happen, but I'm not as full-blown sure, like, the sheer popularity of this particular album. I think the United States definitely liked Amy Winehouse, but it was just kind of the pitch that she just did not get that crossover, like, song like Adele kind of did back in 2011, some of those type fairs. I think it was just kind of the concept that they liked what she was doing, but it was just kind of the concept that it was just more a taste of Britpop within that particular tone. But these were pretty big, just within movie soundtrack type fare and film and those sorts of things, just within pitch. It's not to say that Amy Winehouse didn't have the appeal, but it just, you know, I can't think terribly many times of how many songs I would have heard like on standard rhythmic or pop radio as far as those pitches going to happen from this particular album. But Back to Black did have over 1 billion plays. It's like a Britpop kind of 2000s commerce and makeshift to kind of get just within that tone, just some standard vehicle crawl. I would definitely feel like here, just droopy and kind of slog day to kind of get just within that pitch behind it. So it's just basically just something that you would get from like a standard pop singer like Katy Perry, or like a standard pop singer like Pink or Katy Perry, Lady Gaga, one of those type folks, just in a more Britpop type sense as far as those pitches kind of happen. Just once again, similar to Florence and the Machine and Adele, some of those type folks. Just that relative type fare to kind of get just some more kind of, this definitely felt like the breadwinner in terms of the singles as far as those pitches kind of happen. This is probably the largest single off this particular product that I'd say just within the tone, you know, just judging by the fact that it had over 1 billion plays. Just kind of like just the everyday type song, the Monday song, the Tuesday song, the Wednesday song as far as those pitches kind of happen, just for the workaday type fare, just some more traditional kind of makeshift. Tears Dry on Their Own is the fourth single. Now, some of these type ones, I mean, all of the singles have over 250 million plays on Spotify, but it's just kind of within the pitch behind it that the last two singles don't have as much full-blown popularity, but still for, you know, 200 million, 400 million is nothing to shake a stick at, I would say. But just kind of within the pitch, I just look after Tears Dry on Their Own is like a get gussied up kind of evening primer for like a glitzy night, I'd have to say. It's standard kind of city pizzazz, I would feel like, and just some bright flash to kind of get here. So it's just kind of within the tone, just kind of get prepared, just some primers as far as those pitches will kind of happen. Just look after it. It's kind of a switch to flip mode from like a tiresome work shift type fare as far as those pitches kind of happen with it. Just a good concept to be able to kind of be like, all right, done with work, gonna get towards stepping out, some of that type fare. Just get ready for date night, some of those type things. Just get some drinks in your system, just within a relative type pitch, just something to kind of get some dance going and just kind of some loosen up type vibes for like, I mean, when I said that Back to Black was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday type music, and probably Rehab might be like Wednesday, Thursday type music. I'd probably say that Tears Dry on Their Own is more of like Thursday, Friday type music, just within a sense. I mean, it's not quite as full blown at like the night venue, like You Know I'm No Good and well, probably Rehab, some of those type ones, but I would have to say it's just within a good tone to kind of get it. It's a good primer once again. Then Love is a Losing Game is the 5th single. This is another nice one here. It's like a sullen and kind of moody After Hours Retired to kind of get. It's a good concept for that. Just a rosy kind of evening funk, I would have to feel like here. Just grab a brew and ruminate some of those type fares. So I do like the concept behind this particular product, just the fact that, you know, then the pitch behind it, Amy Winehouse is, at least within the pitch behind it, Amy Winehouse is pretty loosened up within the tone as far as that particular kind of goes. But it's just kind of the concept of like this would definitely be after like 4:30, 5:30 p.m. is like the sun setting, some of that type fare just within the pitch behind it, just having some spare time. Not as much a step out as Tears Dry on Their Own and Rehab, some of those type of ones. And a little bit of, you know, and also I would say, You Know I'm No Good, I'd have to suppose in particular, but it is a good pitch to kind of have some of that, just to have like a relative good concept, but just a feel good type vibe, just that evening kind of breeze as far as those pitches kind of happens, just as far as the tones of just having like some kickback, I'd have to say. But it is kind of moody type song. It's a good pitch behind it. I don't know if emo type music really crossed over as full bound in Europe. I can't really think of like emo terribly many times. I mean, there was like Cinema Bazaar in like certain senses, but in terms like the most full blown, it's not as common that emo type. It's not as full blown common that emo type music really pitches from Europe. I'd say this is like a relative moody type fare, just like, yeah, it's just like a 2000s version, like Adele kind of in her 21 days for us those pitches kind of happen. I feel like songs like Tears Dry, I feel like songs like Love is a Losing Game, Wake Up Alone, and probably a little bit of He Can Only Hold Her, some pitches that just kind of has some of that relative just glum typeness that has the affable type spark about it, I'd say. I'd also say traces of You Know I'm No Good, so it's just within that tone. But yeah, so basically there's 11 songs on the standard edition of this album. There's 11 songs in the standard edition of this album, and out of those 11 songs I wound up recommending 9. So the only 2 songs I don't recommend on here would just be Me and Mr. Jones and Addicted. Talk about those. Both of those are just kind of more homely type ones, just in a more traditional type fare, just within the sense of just something kind of more in between type moments, just kind of a worse version of a song like Just Friends, or these kind of worse variations like the songs like Just Friends and He Can Only Hold Her as far as those pitches kind of happen. They just kind of feel like in between type moments that just are a little bit more peppy and uppity, or just a little bit more peppy and have like they have like a balminess factor about them, but this doesn't have as much jive and like the production value to really warrant like the concept of figuring out where to listen to them. Mine is just like a sunshiny kind of day within the aspect of this standard fare, but it just doesn't have terribly too much tone behind it. But just being able to say, but Wake Up Alone is a nice one. It's like a more quality. Wake Up Alone is like a nice one. This is like some more quality, moody wallow music to kind of get here. Very similar to You Know I'm No Good and Back to Black, I'd have to say, and this is very similar to Adele, I'd have to suppose. It's just an excellent type fare. It just has that morose backdrop as far as those pitches kind of happen. Amy Winehouse really nails this pitch. It's a pretty good strength to be able to have it just within that tone. And I realized that she was probably just not happy when she made this particular record. It's not to say full bound that it was, but just the way she channels like being able to put some of this glumness, very similar to how Adele did, is pretty excellent to kind of get some of these just within the pitch behind it. And it's basically like some in-between day kind of rumination. Now, I would have to say that a nice song for like some more pep, similar to Rehab, would be Just Friends. It's like a jazzy kind of upbeat bustle of a song to kind of get here. It's like a traditional kind of pop swing about this particular one. Reminds me of Lady Gaga and Tony Bennett's album from 2014, despite the fact that this came out almost a decade before. It's just a good pitch for some of that blue-eyed soul to kind of get, and more swinging type music. It's like a good relief from like a long day. I would feel I can just head to a venue and kind of have some jive here. So yeah, Just Friends is a nice one that kind of has some relative pep. Maybe not as bouncy as like Rehab and probably You Know I'm Good, but I would have to say it's a good relative tone to kind of have within that package of just some social step out. I'd have to say it's good fare for some of that just within that relative dreary typeness. I'd say He Can Only Hold Her is a nice one as well. It's like a drip drop kind of city traverse and in between kind of bill pay type music. Just bills paying some of that type fare, and this is like some good commerce flavor to kind of get here. More city type fare just within the concept of it, just whether in Europe or America, some of these type places are other big city type fairs that I say, and this is a overall nice job to kind of get a nice flavor. So it's like the pitch behind it, just really kind of maybe rainy type day, something just of that particular type fare, or just standard out and about, just grab some Subway or a taco, something like that, some hot dogs, some of that type fare, and like city bustle, something to that relative type pitch. Good type tone. It's interesting that this has a lot of urban and kind of big city type flavor. Some Unholy War is a nice one as well. It's like a rosy kind of hangout haze. I would definitely feel like here, just a ruffled and kind of discourse day to kind of get just some good after work shift malaise. I would definitely feel like, and it's just some slog I'd have to say about this one. This one pretty much goes along with like some Unholy War goes along with like Back to Black, the title track, and then You Know I'm No Good. Some of those type ones, just kind of city hop type fare. Yeah, some Unholy War is just some residential type kickback as far as those pitches gonna happen. Just neighborhood type strolls, pitches like that, hangout type fare for Bellas as far as those pitches gonna happen. Just standard kind of ruffled, just altitude, just kind of bad hair day, just bickering problems as far as those pitches gonna happen. Just kind of a rosy type day within the pitch, but it's just some good evening haze gonna happen for some of that. Just good slag and just after this the relative just just stereotype kind of unwind in like a evening slag type something I'd say. So it's a good pitch for that. Yeah, I look after the tone behind it. That's the concept about this particular album here. Is it just has some good hazes just within the concept, like some city bustle, just standard kind of robust kind of, not necessarily blue collar type living, but just the pitch of just like a little bit more just frolic. Just if you have more coffee shop in mind, if you do have similarities to Adele or like Florence and the Machine, some of these type ones, trying to think of some other type ones. It's more like a more New York and just a more elegant and aristocratic type vibe. This is a good concept for just a little bit more artsy type fare that has a good pitch of just like some electric type feel that works. It's in like a social pizzazz about it. So it just has that particular pitch. Like I was saying, it's just like Adele, just within the tone, just a little bit more loosened up and more in like a rock star kind of wilder side type vibes as far as those pitches can happen. And maybe a little bit more drunken in its wallows compared to Adele, just having more sober kind of moodiness, I'd have to say. She's a little bit more stone faced, but it's just within the tone that it just, if you're having some fun, just going out and about and at least being social while you're in a funk, it's just kind of within the tone of having that. But it's a good pitch. So this album I'm going to give like a 9.5 out of 10. Basically, only not recommending 2 songs out of 11. I'd have to say it's a good pitch to kind of get that 9 out of 11 and be like a 9.5 out of 10. The social score though, I'm going to give a 10 out of 10. Like I said, very impactful album, very shape shifting. Did a lot revolutionary type project that helped set off like some of the bigger artists like the 2010s, like Adele, Florence and the Machine, Britpop, some of these type ones, further artists that just kind of took a lot of inspiration from this particular product. This is like Jay-Z's The Blueprint, or Reasonable Doubt, or Eminem's like the Marshall Mathers LP, some of these type ones. It just feels like a very signature female Britpop singer to kind of get within that aspect, especially out of the 2000s. And this is stuff that it did across like the next several years. Very, very astronomical. Shame that there wasn't a third album just to see what Amy Winehouse could have done just within the pitch. I mean, not to say it's like a slight to her legacy or anything like that, but it's just kind of the pitch of just the question marks continue to be in the air as to the trajectory as to what she would have done, and made this question if she had any singles between 2007 and 2011 as far as those pitches going to happen. But I just look at it just within the tone. Some excellent type fare. It's a 10 out of 10 social. In terms of the future, like I was saying, this is Amy Winehouse's most recent project, unfortunately, just within the pitch behind it. But I am going to get to her 2003 album. And I want to say she has like some B-sides projects, and maybe she might have like an unofficial kind of collection of songs that she did at some particular point. Not really as full-blown sure. We'll get to some more of these, but this definitely has some impactful type fare. Would have to say I can see the cusp of this being like a classic. I mean, 9.5, I definitely feel like, I think in a lot of senses, people nowadays, Rolling Stone has said that this is like 33 on their 500 best albums of all time. So it's an excellent type fare to be able to say that that's the velocity of it just within the pitch. So this got a lot of heraldment and accolades that I'd say, and I agree with it. I agree with it in a humongous amount of aspects. So it's just the pitch behind it. There's definitely some more of these I'm going to get to, and we'll just have to see what's up. There's definitely some ones I'm going to get to, and we'll have to see what's up with some of this.